Positioned strategically between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, at the nexus of two worlds lies a bridge that is neither entirely of the East nor wholly of the West, but instead is a unique blend of both. This bridge is the Republic of Turkey. A pivotal crossroads for cultures and empires throughout history. Today, Turkey is a complex and powerful nation, pursuing its own destiny on the world stage. From the labyrinthine-style streets of its largest city of Istanbul, to its arid heartland in central Anatolia, to the opulent oasis of its coastal resorts, Turkey defies simple categorization. It played a key role in the rise of Christianity, but today it's one of the world's most powerful and influential majority Muslim countries. Officially secular for decades, its long history of interfaith conflict casts a shadow on the present day. With the near eradication of its Christian population and the vulnerable status of its minority faiths, it today demands careful and ongoing scrutiny. But if we look deeply into the complexity of Christian identity in Turkey, we may wind up looking back at ourselves, contemplating the nature of fellowship, and how best to extend the hand of understanding to our brothers and sisters around the world. To begin to understand the complex status of Christians in modern Turkey, we need to journey back through time. Turkey's Christian roots reach back through the centuries to the earliest days of the Church. Fleeing persecution in Jerusalem, many of the apostles, Peter, Paul, and John among them, traveled north to find refuge and spread the message of Jesus. They arrived in places like Antioch, known today as Antakya. It is here that St. Peter was said to have founded one of the first Christian churches, laying the foundation for Antioch to become one of the most important cities in the early history of Christendom. Of even greater consequence was Constantinople. When the Roman Empire split in the 4th century AD, it was Constantinople that would become the center of the Greek-speaking Roman world and, eventually, of the Eastern Orthodox branch of Christianity. The formidable Hagia Sophia, built in 537 AD, one of the most famous churches ever constructed, is an enduring emblem of Christianity's deep roots in Turkish history. But, as we will see, its shifting status is emblematic of the ever-changing landscape of faith in Turkish society. As the Ottomans swept into Anatolia in the 14th century, culminating in the fall of Constantinople in 1435, the lives of Christians in the region became highly precarious. Although the information about what happened next is disputed by the Turkish government and hotly debated by historians and scholars alike, one thing is for sure. Over the centuries that followed, minor accommodations were overshadowed by deportations, expulsions, and through lethal violence that pitted faiths and cultures against one another. The consensus among historians is that a genocidal campaign in the early years of the 20th century killed hundreds of thousands of Armenians. Most Turks, however, dismiss this claim as mere propaganda. Nevertheless, the deaths of more than 1 million Armenians, Greeks, and Assyrians in the waning days of the Ottoman Empire saw the nation's Christian population plummet from around a quarter to less than 5%. In 1924, the Treaty of Lausanne formally established the Republic of Turkey and called for Greece and Turkey to exchange minority populations. In the 100 years since, the proportion of Turks who are Christians has plummeted to a few tenths of 1%. Escaping repression in their homeland, Turkish Christians sought safe havens around the world throughout the 20th century. They have settled and thrived in significant numbers in Europe and beyond. But in Turkey itself, a nation of some 85 million people, Christians today number in the mere hundreds of thousands. These few remaining believers are further split among a dizzying number of denominations, divided by both doctrine and ethnicity. The majority of Turkey's Christians belong to Oriental and Turkish Orthodox churches, accounting for over 120,000 followers shared among dozens of sects, with a mere 25,000 Turks belonging to the Greek Orthodox faith. About 15,000 Turks are Roman Catholic, and perhaps only 5,000 Protestants living in the country. Unfortunately, although few in number, Turkey's Christians are still often the focus of suspicion, resentment, local grievances, and naked hostility. They must reckon with spasms of restriction, oppression, and even violence, often encouraged for political purposes. The government actively works to prevent the spread of the faith. Over the last few years, dozens of Christian missionaries, most representing Protestant denominations, have been forced to leave the country, and some have been banned from entering. Politicians often paint Christians as Western collaborators worthy of suspicion. Many members of the Muslim majority view being Christian as making a person less Turkish. Converts to Christianity are ostracized. It is an unspoken rule that non-Muslims are barred from government jobs. Emboldened by the tacit approval of politicians, bigots, and thugs persecuting Christians with greater frequency. Churches have increasingly been desecrated and vandalized. Yet many Turkish Christians have decided to remain. Given the present precarious status of these adherents in Turkish society, why? Identity comprises a complex combination of factors, felt and expressed in ways that may surprise outside observers. Many Turkish Christians feel an unshakable connection to the territory they consider their homeland. Here, they say, is where their communities have lived for hundreds of years. They are proud of how their ancestors have helped shape Turkish culture and been shaped by it, stretching back through centuries. This, for good and ill, is home. For some Christian Turks, that feeling of connection transcends geography. They feel a kinship to their Muslim neighbors, bound together by shared cuisine, shared culture and practice, shared language. Some will even go so far as to say that they have more in common. They feel more comfortable with Turkish Muslims than with their Christian brothers and sisters of Western heritage and outlook. And then there are Christian Turks who have opted to take a pragmatic approach. Rather than merely enduring a hostile landscape, they have learned to judiciously navigate the corridors of power, pursuing accommodations and alliances in the highest circles of Turkish political influence. They have found ways to not merely survive, but thrive in business, as religious minorities do in many countries around the world. Taken at face value, we can find inspiration in the way these believers express their connection and commitment to culture, land, and faith, to kinship with their neighbors, despite a sometimes openly hostile, anti-Christian sentiment in the society at large. But can we take them entirely at face value? How comfortable are Turkish Christians in expressing themselves openly, in a country where the consequences for speaking out can be severe? How free can minorities be when they're forced to tread carefully on constantly shifting terrain? From the point of view of those in power, that uncertainty is undoubtedly part of the plan, offering tolerance with one hand for external consumption, while limiting rights with the other for political purposes at home. As recently as the early years of the 21st century, Turkey pursued membership in the European Union. Conditions improved for religious minorities. In recent years, however, as the government has switched to a populist appeal to retain power, tolerance has fallen out of fashion. In its 2021 report on hate crimes against religious minorities in Turkey, the Helsinki Committee for Human Rights counted 29 incidents. It warned that the total was likely higher since victims were often reluctant to report attacks. The news from Turkey regularly brings fresh stories of ill treatment of minorities, sometimes encouraged for political benefit. In fact, the official stance towards minority faith populations is transmitted forcefully. The Christian Church of Hagia Sophia, ransacked during the fall of Constantinople, was recently converted once again into a mosque by order of the Turkish president, a powerful signal to Turkey's majority Muslim population, but also a warning to Christians.
Erdogan telegraphed his intent to the world by converting the Hagia Sophia, once the largest church in Christendom, into a mosque.
Ever since the modern nation state in 1923, that church has, been a museum basically and free for everyone to gather in. Him just making the decision to turn it back into a mosque basically is a indirect kind of communication to everybody. I want to restore our Ottoman past.
In the glory days of Istanbul's distant past, a bureaucracy grew that was so convoluted, so perplexing, that the very name of the city gave us a word that today embodies maddening complexity: Byzantine. The situation facing Turkish Christians today is no less fraught, no less beset by cross currents and mixed messages. Are Christians tolerated, or are they mere pawns in a larger geopolitical game? Are successful Orthodox entrepreneurs a sign that everyone is welcome in Turkish society, or are they merely the shrewdest navigators in rough winds? Should we pay more attention to the beautiful new churches built in Turkey with government blessing, or to those places of worship that have been vandalized? In the face of this planned ambiguity, we need to hold fast to things we know for certain. Turkey's long history of antagonism towards its Christian community, whether encouraged by official policy or sparked by local tensions, is real and ongoing. We must all bear witness to remind Turkey that the world is watching. At the same time, we must also reflect on the complex realities of Christian identity in Turkey and the strong bond that Christian Turks feel with both their homeland and their Muslim neighbors, and to remember that many Turkish Muslims are as tolerant as we would want our own communities to be, whatever the political climate of the day. We must acknowledge a kernel of truth that in striving for mutual respect and fellowship across faiths, as we demand justice and humane treatment of religious minorities, we must unfailingly hold ourselves and our societies to a higher standard. Even in the face of provocation and resentment, we must remind ourselves to extend the hand of friendship, especially to those less powerful than ourselves. In seeking a better future for religious minorities and in demanding justice and fairness for Turkey's Christians, we must ourselves lay the foundation and set an example every day.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and that it has given you a fresh perspective on the world we live in. If you enjoyed this project, please consider leaving a thumbs up and sharing it with others who might find it intriguing. Your support helps us reach a wider audience and inspire more people to explore the wonders of our world and offer different perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay updated with our upcoming releases. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.